Yeah, all the time. All right, guys. Welcome one and all to another exciting episode of Under the Dome. Yeah, our pre-production meetings are fun. Um, we
Sorry.
are yeah, we are now approaching week 3, which is actually the important week of preseason. This is the preseason game where we should actually see Drew Brees. We should actually see Alvin Kamara in for an actual, half maybe. Cam Jordan has yet to play. We'll see Cam Jordan, and you'll probably see that offensive line together a lot longer too. So this will be the first preseason game when we will probably see something that we can actually make judgments on, as opposed to that Hindenburg disaster we saw Friday night. The Taysom Hill hype train crashed and burned horribly last Friday night, and we're going to do a little bit of the dissection of that game, as well as we might talk a little bit about the Jacksonville game and some of the rumors that are flying around right now regarding Teddy Bridgewater and how the Saints' backup quarterbacks look, and what we think of the strengths and what we think of some of the weaknesses on the team so far in preseason. I'm your host, Alan Ulrich. I'm here with my laughing partner, Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
Doing great, man. Excited as always to be here. We want to thank you guys for joining us. We want to thank our sponsors, Fan First Productions, for sponsoring our show. We want to invite you guys to subscribe on iTunes and on YouTube to Under the Dome podcast. Coming up, this is a part of the movies where everybody's eating their popcorn. The coming attractions, on September the 8th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we will be having our 3rd annual season kickoff extravaganza palooza, whatever you want to call it. We're gonna have a contest with all of our folks that listen to name the show. Our pre-draft show, that the big special that we do, that's reserved, and it's named forever. But we really need a hype name for this, I guess. But also on September the 5th at 7 p.m., our pal, our buddy, our brother in arms, the unofficial 3rd member of the Under the Dome crew, Bob Rose and the Bayou Blitz will be doing their kickoff season kickoff special. Say that 6 times real fast. And his guest on that show will be Tyrone Hughes, who's been on with us before. Excellent guest, fantastic guy. Oh, and our guest for our season kickoff show, now that I've introduced everybody else's, our guest is going to be none other than former Saints linebacker Jolon Dunbar. So we want to invite everyone to join us that night. One thing real quickly, I want to someone that may see this a little bit later, my buddy Jamie Foxx, no, not the actor, and Any Given Sunday, but some of you guys may know him from the photos and such from the Joe Horn football camp that we represented. He had surgery on Friday, and he's still in the MICU ward at St. Francis in Monroe, and we want to wish him a speedy recovery. And my thoughts and prayers are with you, brother. Hope you get better soon. At any rate, moving right along. Cards Rewind. Also, in parentheses, it says C. Hindenburg. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, last Friday night, as that first half was unfolding, I posted on both Twitter and on my Facebook page a picture of the burning Hindenburg after it already hit the pole, the tower, and was collapsing, just burning. I said a live shot of the Taysom Hill hype train at this moment, because 4 turnovers in 6 possessions really revealed a lot about Taysom Hill, and was really a bucket of cold water in the face of a lot of people who believe that Hill not only is the Saints' future quarterback, but could play the second string quarterback right now. And what you saw is what you're going to see out of a quarterback like Hill. He has a lot of inexperience. This is why a guy like Tom Savage is on the team, because Hill has a lot of inexperience. Even though he's 28 years old, he is a very, I don't want to say the word rough, but he is
raw.
A raw and undisciplined. It was really the key word, an undisciplined quarterback right now.
Well, I think Taysom Hill is a prime example of what people like you and I have been trying to make people understand. You can draw whatever divisions you want to in there, but there is a stark difference between playing quarterback at the college level and playing quarterback at the NFL level. It's two completely different worlds. It's
an entirely different game, and people just don't see that because they think that, hey, it's football. Football is football. But, I'm always reminded of a Peyton Manning quote from his rookie year. He called Archie Manning up one day and says, "Dad, no one is open." And that's very true in the NFL. No one is wide open unless somebody blows a coverage. You watch college football any given Saturday, and you will constantly see receivers who are wide open on the field. The field is actually appears bigger in college football, partially because of the way the hash marks are laid out, but it just seems bigger because the speed of all 22 players is not as great in college football as it is in pro football. So you physically, as a quarterback in the NFL, you have to physically throw people open. And that comes from having a quarterback whose mechanics are so fundamentally sound. You are consistently releasing the ball at the same point. You are putting the ball in the exact same spot. The timing is perfect. So the receiver catches the ball in stride before the defensive back can react. And the best quarterbacks, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Manning's, the Drew Breeses, Aaron Rodgers, those are the guys who can put that ball in such a position that even if the defensive back knows it's coming, he still has a hard time defending it. And that's what makes an elite quarterback. What you're seeing from Taysom Hill is a guy who played, even though he played at BYU, played in a system that didn't require that level of mechanics, that level of precision from the quarterback position. That's why he looks so much better to people when he runs with the ball, because he's that athletic. But as a passer, we just don't see that consistency that you would see out of an NFL quarterback. And then people are like, well, it's his first game really starting with the number ones, and I'm like, well, Rosen for the Cardinals, that was his first game, or now second game starting, and he looked a lot more poised and polished. Well, he's a first-round draft pick. What do you expect? It doesn't matter in this regard. You're still talking about playing at an NFL level, and Rosen comes from a system where they worked at his skills to prepare him for an NFL career more than Hill did. And that's the issue that comes with Hill. He's 28 years old. How many years are you going to invest in a guy like that to hopefully turn him into a potential NFL quarterback. Is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? Now you're talking about a guy who's going to be, he's 28 now because he did his mission as being a Mormon, did the whole bicycle helmet, white shirt, black pants, tie, two guys on a bike come knocking on the door and tell you about, have you heard the good news? So, yeah, I just alienated an entire Mormon viewing audience, but that's beside the point.
I'm trying not to. Go ahead.
Hey, there's a whole play called The Book of Mormon. It's I recommend it. It's very funny. He got every sense of humor right now. Anyway, the point is he did his mission. So now he's 27, 28 years old. If you invest 4 years into this guy, now you're talking about a player that's 32 years old. He's really in his prime right now. A player that's 25, 26, 27, 28 years old, an NFL quarterback, this is when they should be hitting their prime. This is when you should start seeing them mature and develop to be a consistent NFL passer, not when they're in their early 30s. Because now, Drew Brees and Peyton Manning and Tom Brady aside, the average lifespan of a quarterback is 35 years old. So if you've invested 4 years into a guy to turn him into an NFL passer, and he's now 31, 32 years old, are you getting a good return out of this guy with just a 2 or 3 year career? I'd say no, not for the time you put into him. And for those who sit there and say, well, 4 years, you got to be kidding me. They can get him in 2. He just needs 2 years of working with this team. No, not the way he looks out there.
Not in a Sean Payton offense. I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. You're talking about a league where I don't know the correct term to use here. The average life expectancy of a player with a given franchise, say so-and-so signs with this team, generally speaking, their lifespan on that team is 2 1/3 years.
Yeah.
And now that's if they're able to parlay signing with them into a added long-term deal in the future. But you take into consideration free agency and also injuries, and 2 1/3 season is the average of what a starting player stays with a team. And I want to say that was maybe 2 years ago that I read that.
Mm-hmm.
But the pool of prospective players to possibly have the opportunity to make an NFL roster has never been deeper. And more to the point, nowadays, the players have never been as talented as they are right now, I believe. You're looking at your Division I AA schools, your Division II schools, all these schools are upgrading the level of their facilities to a point where you're getting players out of every level of college football now that are making the pros on a yearly basis. It's not just a Marcus Colston makes it from Hofstra, and how many others have made the NFL from Hofstra besides Wayne Corbett? Got you there, didn't I?
Yeah, I had Wayne Corbett in mind, but no, I mean, Joe Flacco came from Delaware. Who the kid from Wyoming? I can't think of his name right now.
Josh Allen. Those are examples. Not Goff, but the other one.
Oh, Carson Wentz. Yeah,
San Diego.
There's another one.
Not San Diego. South Dakota.
South Dakota. Yeah.
Rich Gannon. Delaware.
Yeah, going back in
Stan
time.
Humphreys, Northeast Louisiana University. Bubby Brister, Northeast Louisiana University. Terry Bradshaw, Louisiana Tech University.
Yep.
And then there was Mitchell from that other school.
Yeah,
but
he holds the record. He just holds the record for all-time kick return yardages, but we won't talk about him right now. But
that's going to be in the DVD extras for this season.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I'm just, my point is, and your point is correct too. You can get players from anywhere now. It's no longer the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, the Michigans, or in the SEC, the LSUs, the Alabamas, the Georgias. That are, that's where you get all your good players from. You can get them at almost any level, and the scouting reflects that. But more to the point here, that's because of free agency and because of the NFL salary cap, both for rookies and for players in general. You don't have the time anymore that they had with Steve McNair, another one come from a small school, Alcorn State. The time you had with Steve McNair where you could sit him on the bench and let him learn and work with him and develop him so that when you do turn him loose on the NFL, he is ready to play. You don't have that kind of time anymore to invest in a player like that, especially one who, Taysom Hill's an undrafted free agent. That's not like a high draft pick, not like a first round project that like I say a Davenport that we have, where you can afford to redshirt him for a couple of years and get him ready for this level of play. We got to move forward, and moving forward is, if you can't do the job, we're going to bring somebody in who we think can, and you're going to go compete with this guy head to head. And if you can't beat him out, you're out of here.
That's right.
The saving grace, of course, for Hill is he's so good on special teams, and he can actually probably develop a nice long career, a la
Rich Marty.
But I'm thinking about the kid from Buffalo, Steve Tasker. Steve Tasker made a career out of being a special teams player, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get his hands on a couple punts this year. That's a good career for him. But as far as an NFL quarterback, I just don't see it right now. I think it's going to be several years of a lot of work to get him to that point. And the question is whether the Saints would be willing to do that. Is he a player worth spending that kind of time on while colleges are turning players out all the time?
I think we're looking at the same type of level of commitment that Notre Dame showed to Rudy to make him to make Taysom Hill a starting quarterback. We may be looking at a long tenure here. Me personally, to be totally honest, I think they missed the boat in trying to mold him into a starting caliber quarterback. Get the ball in his hands and let him do what he does. Use him as a slot receiver type guy, a flanker even. Just something where you put the ball in his hands and allow him to do what he does best, which is move and make people miss. The skill set required, you think of at any given point in time, even the worst, and I've said this so many times, even the worst quarterback in the NFL, at any given point in time, the worst starting quarterback in the NFL is still one of the 32 best in the world at what he does.
Well, and that leads us to the next comment about the backup quarterback position. And I promise I'll talk about the good things about that Cardinals game, because there actually were some positives in that game. But you've got.
Is that going to be the male cheerleader? I didn't see that in the notes. I wanted to.
No, it will not be the male cheerleader. But here's the thing about you got two sets of fans here. you've got the fan base here that wants the Saints to find that Kurt Warner, um, uh, you know, Tony Romo kind of diamond in the rough quarterback that we just found that somebody else didn't see. And we have our quarterback of the future on the roster right now. We don't have to worry about drafting a guy. We'll just go seamlessly from Drew Brees to the next guy. I'll allow the Packers with Favre to Rodgers, or the 49ers with Montana to Young. So you have that fan base, and that's part of the reason why the Taysom Hill hype was so strong, because that was the guy they were going to sit on. It's definitely not Tom Savage. They've got ABS going on right now in Saintsville. Anybody but Savage. I mean, that's the reality. And then you've got the other fan base who are like, hey, I get it. Taysom Hill's not the future of this franchise. He is who he is, and Savage is who he is, and it's just about having a backup quarterback right now. The quarterback of the future is not on the roster yet. That will come. We'll have to draft that guy. We'll have to get somebody to replace him. And right now, the ABS crowd is like, okay, if Hill's not the guy, then Teddy Bridgewater. Let's go dumpster diving. It's time for Teddy Bridgewater. We'll go for him now. Oh, that's no good? Well, how about we'll go dumpster diving for Colt McCoy, or we'll go dumpster diving for...
Hey. Don't call Colt dumpster material. You did that on purpose.
My point, yeah. My point on all these players is it's not so much that they're trash. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is people are diving into these, teams' rosters looking for somebody, anybody that's Savage, but somebody that they can get to be, if Drew Brees gets hurt, we're not screwed kind of backup. And if he turns out to be the quarterback of the future, even better, but that's where we are right now. We have the guys looking for the quarterback of the future, and then we have the anybody but Savage group. So,
well, let me make a point here. It keep it in perspective. I think is what I'm trying to say with this. Think about this. Breeze has been here for, this will be year 12, correct?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Technically year 13 because they count 2006. So 12 years, but year 13.
Okay. We're about to start year 13, and Breeze is 13 seasons times 6. I'm terrible with math. Anyway, he's missed one game.
78.
Okay. 78 games that he started and one that he hasn't. Now, you have to factor in the age issue because I'm not stupid. As he gets older, the likelihood that something could happen is there. Sure, it is. In all likelihood, but you're not talking about those 3, 7, and 9 season teams. Now, during those 3, 7, and 9 seasons, you had a team where Drew Brees gets hurt, fold up tents, go home, it's over. We're not going to sniff at a win. We're not even going to watch another team win on Monday Night Football. This is not that team. You have a very strong defense. You have a very, very strong offense. For Pete's sake, you got the defensive rookie of the year. You got the offensive rookie of the year on the same roster. This is not the same approach that you would normally take. Now, sure, don't get me wrong. If Drew Brees gets hurt, that is a blow. Drew is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer at whatever point and time that he chooses to quit. 5 years after that, he's going in. No doubt about that. And that's going to have an effect. But if something happens to Drew, you pick up the pieces, you reorganize the chessboard and you carry on. You have other weapons in place to do your business. Whereas those 3, 7, and 9 seasons, it was Drew Brees and everybody else. And it used to infuriate me to see them to play on a Monday night football game or a Thursday night or Sunday night, because they always would introduce them as Drew Brees and company. And that was like a slap in the face. But at the same time, it was the reality of the situation. That's exactly what it was. It was Drew Brees and everybody else. And if anything happened to Drew Brees, there wasn't anybody else, is the long and short of it. I believe that, people can hate on Savage all they want. He is in a very, I don't want to say rare, but a somewhat exclusive club in the National Football League. He is a backup quarterback with starting quarterback experience. How did he do? Well, that's not really all that important, because, that Houston team that he inherited after Watson went down, it wasn't the juggernaut that it was at one time, because you had no Deshaun Watson, you had no J.J. Watt, and pieces were falling by the wayside almost with every play. That wasn't an ideal situation at all. I'm not going to defend the guy. His record speaks for itself. It is what it is. Tom Savage is not the worst guy that we could have as a backup for Drew Brees, but he's going to be just that. The best backup for Drew Brees is going to be somebody that we never see on the field. How do you think Luke McCown was?
He got a commercial spot based on not playing.
That's right. He carried the clipboard so well, they made a commercial about him. Yeah. And then a week after his commercial goes nationwide, Drew Brees misses his first start in his career due to injury.
Yeah.
I hope Tom Savage doesn't do any commercials, actually.
Yeah, you're right. Well, and that's that. The best scenario, obviously, is that Tom Savage never sees the field, that he stands around with the clipboard every Sunday. And like I said in one of my reviews, it's a very difficult job to be prepared to play every week, but you don't get the reps. And you know that you're probably not going to play at all, but you have to mentally prepare yourself to go in at any moment. And you're going to have to go in cold. You're not going to have much of an opportunity to warm up. You're not going to have much of an opportunity to have your say in the game plan as far as what plays you like, what plays you don't like. I mean, Drew Brees is the one that says the plays he likes. But you have to instill the confidence in the coach that, you know what, we can still run our basic offense with this guy. We don't have to change a whole lot because he is in now. And
can you imagine the mental hurdle that you would have to get over if you have to go home and tell your little kids at home, hey, if daddy gets to play this Sunday, it's going to be the worst possible scenario imaginable.
Sure. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. What you said in the outset, though, is really important, because we are a much better team than the Houston Texans were last year. Yeah. Part of the reason why Deshaun Watson looked so good is because he was able to move that team. He was that offense. Yes, I know they got DeAndre Hopkins, the receiver. Yes, I know. Yes, I know they've got a couple weapons and stuff on offense, but really Watson was what was driving that team. And that's a credit to Watson, really. It really was. And just like in New Orleans, if we lose Drew Brees, we're in a lot of trouble, for any length of time. You can't sugarcoat that.
No.
However, we do have a Mark Ingram. We do have an Alvin Kamara. We do have a Michael Thomas. Traquan Smith, the guy that one of the guys I will talk about,
yes,
that is playing. That is one of the bright spots in this offense. He is proven to be a more consistent receiver than Ted Ginn is right now. I mean, Ted Ginn got called out by Peyton in the press conference, running 2 routes. He blamed one of the interceptions. One of the turnovers on Ginn not running the correct route. Sean Payton called out the receiving core in general, saying they're playing very average. For a core that has so much talent, to get blasted for playing average, and the only highlight has been so far as Smith, that's saying something. But again, when the game really counts, I think you'll see Ginn probably step up his game a little more. You see more out of Smith. We haven't seen hardly anything out of Meredith. Meredith was responsible for one of the turnovers. I attribute that more to a lack of practice time and chemistry developed with Hill, but it's still something to take notice of because our receiving core was supposed to be so deep, yet the only thing we've really seen is Michael Thomas and Smith really step up their game. We haven't seen much out of the other two. And same with the tight ends. You haven't seen anything out of the tight ends. Yelder, who was the pre-training camp superstar, a favorite among fans, has disappeared. We haven't heard a thing out of Yelder in training camp.
I don't think Yelder's even with us anymore, is he?
No, he is. He's still with us. But Dan Arnold has passed him up, and Arnold's not anything special. Arnold is a converted wide receiver trying to learn how to play tight end. But it's really been Josh Hill who's really caught him as anything. Ben Watson's hardly played. Ben Watson's been hurt. He's 37 years old, so they're going to take it easy on him in preseason games. But the tight end position has struggled a bit. But the good news is, and this is the other thing that will help if Savage has to finish a game or, God forbid, start a game, Savage will be playing behind probably one of the best offensive lines in the NFL.
Absolutely. I don't think that there's any way to adequately address just exactly how underrated the offensive line of the New Orleans Saints is at this point.
Yep. And if you've got
you have a reserve, if I'm not mistaken, undrafted free agent reserve that is making PFF lists for high grades of offensive linemen in their preseason snaps. That says a lot.
Are you talking about Rick Leonard?
Leonard, yeah, I think that's
that was a 4th-round pick. That was the 4th-round pick that everybody panned because they said it was a reach, and he's turned out to be having a very good camp. But yeah, you've shown you've got some depth, and you're showing you've got one of the most solid lines to play behind, and that will help a quarterback like Savage, who is a slow, methodical game manager. He is not a playmaker like Drew Brees is. Playing behind an offensive line like that and handing off to 2 running backs like Ingram and Kamara give him an advantage he simply did not have in Houston. That's not to say that he is the future. That's not to say he is the best backup in the NFL. That just means that he is not a disaster waiting to happen. He is a mediocre, average backup quarterback in the NFL. Somebody who has starters experience, but he's not going to save the season if he had to come in and play, but he probably isn't going to wreck the season either if he had to come in and play. He will probably do pretty much what Cade McCown did. Not Cade, I'm sorry. Yeah, Cade Luke McCown. Sorry, Cade's the brother.
Cade's the younger brother.
No, Josh the younger brother. Cade McCown is a 1999 draft pick we would have taken, but the Bears took him from UCLA. He was a quarterback, but not the guy I'm thinking of. Anyway, sorry about that. That is just a haywire right there. Sorry. He is not Luke. He is probably going to do about what Luke McCown did against Carolina. Probably go 20 to 25, 175, 200 yards passing. I know McCown did over 300, but 275 yards max. Maybe a touchdown pass. Not going to win a lot of games for you. He's going to do a lot of checkdowns, that kind of stuff. So,
but see, I think the gist, what we've just spent half an hour talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, what it all boils down to is if you still have a game to manage, a game manager is not the worst thing in the world to have.
Right. He's not going to come off the bench and win a ball game for you. He is, if you're down by 14 points, he might get it within 11. He might get it within 3. But he's not going to rally a team to come back. He would have to get the ball in the hands of Kamara, Ingram, and Thomas, people like that, and they win the ball game for you. And have a defense come and get key turnovers, and they help win the ball game for you.
Now, the first game we're down by 11 and Savage comes off the bench, I'm going to turn TV off.
Sorry.
Well, look, we're halfway through the preseason now. Mm-hmm. We have seen basically nothing of our number one draft pick that we traded our next year's number one draft pick away for, Marcus Davenport. And we've spoken at length about how that's not exactly the worst thing in the world. I see no point in belaboring that point. Where, just in terms of offensively and defensively, where do you think that we sit at this point, like I said, halfway through the preseason, as in terms of what we need to see as opposed to what we haven't seen yet?
Well, you haven't seen the whole starting offense start. Nor have you seen the entire starting defense go out there and start. So it's hard to make an evaluation on how the season's going to unfold because you haven't seen the entire team out there as that you will see come September in against Tampa. You haven't seen that team show up yet. What you have seen is you've seen guys like we mentioned Smith. We mentioned the offensive line. Trey Hendrickson is playing lights out. So that has taken the pressure off of Davenport to come in and have an instant impact. It's taken the pressure off of Alex Okafor to come out and pick up where he left off. He can actually, I know he got injured and had that scary moment where we thought maybe it was more serious than it really was, but it was a bone bruise. It's taken the pressure off of having to have those guys play right away for you. You seem to have a really good player, and it's that 2017 draft class, which will probably surpass the 86 and 81 draft classes as being the best ever for the Saints. It's going to be tough because you got a Hall of Famer in that 81 draft class, but still, the fact that, you now have Hendrickson a year later taking a step forward to being an impact player, that's a big deal. That's really good. The linebacker core, you're seeing a lot of depth, but we haven't seen a lot of plays out of those guys. We've seen more mistakes than plays. And they've been playing around with the alignment. Davis has been on the outside. You've seen Manti Te'o start at middle linebacker. You've seen Anzalone come in and play middle linebacker. AJ Klein has now been playing with the second team a lot more. You've seen Robertson in a lot. So it's still unsettled. And the secondary hasn't been getting turnovers. they've been conceding a lot of throws out there, a lot of underneath stuff, and that's disconcerting right now. So, it's hard to say where we are yet because so much of it is okay. We already know what this guy can do. We're going to put we'll put P. Rob as a starting cornerback and see how he does as a starter. Then we'll move him back down to nickel, and we'll slide in Arthur Millette in as a starter and see how he looks next to Ken Crawley. That kind of stuff. We're seeing a lot of that going on. Not a whole lot of stability in anything, so you can sit there and make a projection on how the team looks overall. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It when we first get preseason football, it's fantastic. It's football. It's been 9 months since we've seen our guys in action. And then like a week later, it's like, oh my God, can we just start the season already? I'm too sick of looking at these guys. But you have to take it in context. You have to see it for what it is. Whether these guys are trying to make the New Orleans Saints or not, they're by playing these preseason games, they're filling out a resume that will go to all 32 teams in the league, Saints and everyone else included. They're filling out a resume to possibly get work, maybe not with New Orleans, but maybe with someone else. I get it and I understand it. For such, this is going to sound really terrible. For such a quarterback-driven league, I can't remember any time before that there was such a huge disparity between starting quarterback and backup quarterback in this league. While I didn't get to see the Saints game this week against Arizona, I did happen to catch, I want to say it was the first half of the Cincinnati Bengals and Dallas Cowboys. And y'all, any of our fans that may be in the Cincinnati area, y'all need to put holy water on Andy Dalton. Y'all need to put popsicle sticks in his drawers. Y'all need to do whatever it takes. And what's really sad is his backup is a Louisiana Tech boy. And I hate that. But if Andy Dalton gets hurt, Marvin is finally going to have to update his resume, I do believe.
Well,
And the sad thing about it is they won the game. They beat Dallas.
This goes right back to what we were just saying about Tom Savage. I mean, look at Green Bay. You lose Aaron Rodgers and Brent Hundley comes in, and the Packers are no longer even a playoff team. They're terrible. They are. They just, to quote Charles Barkley, they're terrible. I mean, you look at the Colts with Andrew Luck out. Andrew Luck is gone. The Colts are terrible. It's just, you can go down the list. Tom Brady gets knocked out for the Patriots. The Patriots aren't winning that division. They fall to the back of the pack. I mean, that's not to knock Bill Belichick, but
I don't get to listen to ESPN radio anymore. I have to listen to Fox Sports now because that's what our local affiliate is. And I used to be sort of naive about the way that things work. I see it now for what it is. And, the NFL is a better place when Andrew Luck plays football for the Indianapolis. Okay. The hype train has left the station. I get it. They're already making excuses for if this season blows up in his face. And I thought that was just the most hilarious thing I heard on radio all day today. He doesn't have much of an offensive line. He doesn't have many wide. There's a quarterback down here in South Louisiana that, for about 6 years there, he didn't have no whole hell of a lot to work with, but All he did was put up 5,000 yards passing every year.
Well,
okay, rant over. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I got you. My point is, though, the people who are citing doomsday that the Saints have a horrible backup quarterback position. I promise you, if Matt Ryan's backup had to play, Cam Newton's backup had to play, we're already checking off a win in Tampa because Fitzpatrick's got to start instead of Winston. I mean, you just go down the list.
Don't fool yourself about Fitzpatrick.
Fitzpatrick
was a playoff quarterback in New York.
I'm
not talking about you. I mean, generally speaking.
I'm just saying, though, that for most people that are freaking out about Tom Savage, you've got to realize you look around and at least 28 teams in the NFL have the same or worse problem as a backup quarterback. I mean, Watson goes down, Savage comes in their seasons, it was done to begin with, but Watson gave him hope for a little while, then he gets knocked out and the season was over with. Russell Wilson gets knocked out in Seattle. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl in Philadelphia, but did we not say prior to the playoffs beginning, based on the way Foles was playing in those final games, that, oh man, we want to play the Eagles. That's the easy route to the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. And conversely, nobody ever. You did not see nearly the amount of attention paid. You didn't see anyone wanting to really pay much attention or talk about backup quarterbacks at all until the Eagles win a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. Well, I was going to say, it was a bit of a John Fourcade moment almost for that team, too, for the Eagles. They rallied behind the whole underdog. They had the dog mask on, the whole bit. They rallied around that underdog label. And, Foles had, for lack of a good comparison, Foles kind of had that John Fourcade moment from 1989, those last 3 games of the season, where Fourcade beat the Bills, the Eagles, and the Colts. He just did it in the postseason. He beat, the Falcons, the Vikings like a drum, and then the Patriots. He had those 3 great games. But prior to that, Foles was a backup over there in Los Angeles. And when he was released, nobody really wanted him.
Yeah.
And he goes back to Philadelphia, and people are like, yeah, we got full. I mean, we're screwed if Carson Wentz is hurt. And look what happened. So,
one of the guys,
not to beat a dead horse, but yeah.
One of the guys that I work with at Pro Football Spot, I saved a text message that I sent him, screenshot it, and saved it to my phone, where I think it was the first week after Wentz went down that Foles started. I went on and on about how Foles was playing like the village idiot, and the Eagles would never advance in the playoffs if this is what they had to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
I sent that to him on the evening after the Super Bowl was over with. I said, I guess I missed on this one.
We all did. Because I'm telling you, I watched that last game of the season last year where the Eagles were playing. I think they were playing the Giants. I don't remember.
Dallas.
They were playing Dallas. Oh, no wonder it was like a pillow fight between 2 paraplegics. It was a horrible game. I mean, it was the worst game I'd ever watched. It was. What team could play more incompetently? I'm sorry.
Oh my God, we just lost that segment.
Well, there's no other way to compare that game. I mean, it was terrible.
Oh my Lord. Anyway. I'm trying to figure out exactly where we lost that.
Let's talk about the new rules and say new safety rules in football. We'll get off the Foles thing and
Oh.
composure. I watched the count of people who were watching just switch off just now. So anyway, back to football. This is something you have to keep in mind too when we talk about the preseason. Whenever the league passes a new rule, and these new safety rules, and we're going to get into in just a second, but the officials kind of get flag happy in the preseason because they know the game doesn't count, so they're going to throw the flag a lot more than they probably would in a regular season game. But it's still concerning enough that what they are throwing flags on look like normal plays that you would want to see in a football game, specifically the roughing the passer calls. I get it. They are going for protection of the players. They're trying to avoid head injuries. They want players to stop using the helmet as a weapon or a spear. So, they want players not to lower their heads into a guy. But here's what I'm seeing, though. The way the game is getting called now, I am seeing textbook tackling. I am seeing quarterbacks who instinctively curl into a play because they're getting ready to get hit to protect this part of their chest. So their helmet, the front of their helmet, is coming down on a guy's helmet whose head is up and making a slight bit of contact or hitting as the guy wraps up and drives you down to the ground. Because you remember when you were a player, Sean, how did they teach you to tackle? Look at what you hit, wrap up, and drive it to the ground. If you can't see
it, don't hit it.
Right.
Because it'll either leave you paralyzed or it'll be a penalty, one or the other.
Yeah. So you look at what you hit, you drive through, wrap up, and drive him to the ground. People are getting flagged for this now. Yeah. So now, as a player, you're going, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to tackle this person? And what they're doing basically is taking the aggression part of the game out of the game. And that's part of the appeal of football is the aggression and the hits. I put a clip in, and I encourage everybody, even if you don't like the Giants, I encourage everybody to go look up Lawrence Taylor's highlights, and I think they play a song called Stranglehold to the video. But you watch Lawrence Taylor when I knew you'd like that.
Ted Nugent, baby.
You watch Lawrence Taylor hit these guys, and the tomahawk chop he does to force a fumble. He is blindsiding these quarterbacks. He is wrapping them up, driving them into the dirt, and you see the raw speed of the player. That's the stuff you saw, and that's what made NFL so popular. Seeing Lawrence Taylor blow off the ball. Here he comes, and poor Ron Jaworski has no idea he's coming. Blindside him, head snaps back, arm flings forward. He hits you that tomahawk chop. Ball comes out. Fumble recovery, Giants. We saw the same thing with Pat Swilling. When Pat Swilling was here, Ricky Jackson. That stuff, it seems like the league is driving that kind of stuff out of football, making it more an offensive AFL kind of game. I'm sorry. Go ahead and say what you were going to say.
I can remember hearing several times Ron Jaworski tell that story about how he was the starting quarterback for the Eagles, and he came out on the field and his head is on a swivel. He's looking for LT, and he calls the time. LT is on the sidelines. He called a timeout. But, I mean, that just goes to show you what kind of an impact that one player, how he played the game, whether you agree with it or not, how that impacted the game in and of itself. Now, look, I'm not one of these bloodthirsty gladiator guys that think that, if you decapitate Jack Tatum, that sort of thing, that had its time in this league, and that time is come and gone. I do think that there is a place to play this game at a high level, at a very, very high speed, if you want to call it that, maybe. Um, as a defensive player, which I was, granted, play it aggressively, but play it cleanly. No one is, if you're out to hurt someone, there's no place in this game for you. But at the same time, as speaking as a former cornerback, if you tell me that a guy is coming across the field and he's running straight at me wide open, not looking at me, and I put my head to the side and put my shoulder pad into the breastplate of his shoulder pad, that's illegal. As a defensive player, what am I supposed to do? These rules are not helping the game. They may reduce injuries, but they're going to also reduce competitiveness tenfold more than what you're reducing injuries.
I question whether it's even reducing injuries, because what you're seeing now is you're not seeing hits. And this is my point here. You're not seeing hits that, oh, okay, I can understand why you didn't want to have this guy get hit, because he did leave with the helmet. He drove the helmet into his chest, or he did, pick up the player and drive him into the turf, and so his head bounces off the turf. I understand those rules that you're trying to prevent that kind of stuff, but the things I'm seeing them flag, they are not plays that, that there's excessive violence in it. It's not plays where you're seeing, guys have the potential to get hurt on a play like that. It's just football. And if a defensive player gets told, okay, well, you can't do that anymore, now the hesitation is, okay, well, then I'm going to have to concede the catch, or I'm going to have to concede the quarterback throwing the ball. I'm just hoping my secondary can keep up and stop him from completing the pass, because I can't go sack the quarterback. I'll try and knock the ball down. I'll try and, stop the running back by tackling him at the waist. But as far as the quarterback, I'm just not going to touch him. We can't have that. That's where we're coming to with this game. And that's not healthy for football. There's a balance you can do between safety and realistic rules to encourage player safety. If you really care about player safety, get rid of Thursday Night Football. That's the first thing I would do, to protect player safety, so they're not playing games on 2 days rest.
Oh, I thought you were going to say how dangerous it was to play in those god-awful colored jerseys that way.
Well, that's beside the point. That's a money-making scheme too. But I'm just saying, if you really care about player safety, get rid of this helmet-to-helmet rule that you've got, or enforce it much more leniently than you have been. Because so many of those things are judgment calls at regular speed, not in super slow motion. And it's not really protecting the players. Protect the players, get rid of Thursday Night Football, go back to playing Sunday and Monday night and Thanksgiving Day only, but go back to playing Sunday and Monday night and just leave it at that. Let the players get the rest they deserve. Not try and every week have two teams play on 2 days worth of rest. It's just that's not realistic. That's not caring about safety.
Well, I like the Thursday Night Football because it gives some people that don't have other opportunities the opportunity to take advantage of taking in this product, and I'll just leave it at that. And I agree with you in the point that you made a little while ago, that you're not really doing that much to protect these players. I'm going to
Hello? Okay, why did he freeze? What the heck just happened? Is it me or is it him? We're going to carry on just like Sean will come back any minute now. But because I know we lost a picture a minute ago. But that was my rant for the evening. Oh, that you're back.
Yes, I'm back.
Did I freeze or you froze? I don't know.
My camera froze like 20 seconds before it finally shut off.
Ah, okay. I got you. Well, go ahead what you were saying before.
Okay, real quickly. I don't think that you're doing, as you alluded to earlier, I don't think you're doing a whole hell of a lot to protect these players. I really don't. And people can be mad at me and they can hate me forever if they want to. But I'm going to tell you the harsh reality of what really is in this world. I spent 13 years as a player, and I played at the highest level possible until I could play no more. And I can tell you with a probably 98% certainty that every player that walks out on those fields for all 32 teams in this league on any given Sunday, you tell them, as they walk out of that locker room, you tell them, you know, there's a possibility that you could die doing what you're doing today. They'd shrug their shoulders and say, that's good with me. I'll accept that risk. What the point I'm trying to make is you accept a certain amount of risk when you play this game. By its very nature, this is a violent game. You are turning around and handing a piece of leather to someone and inviting 11 guys to try to break him in half. Now, can you please explain to me how that's not supposed to be violent? That by its very nature, football is a violent game. Now, sure, there's a lot about the game that is taken to an extreme and is way more violent than it maybe should be. And you can do a lot to regulate that. Don't regulate what's going on don't over-regulate what's going on the field to the point that you change the entire scape of the game.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, part of the appeal, and this goes to the gladiator comment you were saying before, part of the appeal of the NFL is the idea of this is just, the physical nature. You can go out there and hit somebody. Somebody does something wrong, you can go out there and hit them. Yes, we like the score. We like the incredible athletic ability on offense, but on defense, we want to, I hate this comparison, but it's true. The gladiator, the Roman Colosseum crowd of, the chanting and, the emotion when a quarterback gets sacked, the opposing quarterback gets sacked, especially on third down in a critical drive. I mean, the roar is just unbelievable. And it's very Roman Colosseum-esque in that response. So people enjoy that. They get, so much tensions released on seeing a big play, a big hit. The crowd goes, ooh. I mean, the NFL films used to market, and I have the VHS tapes in my library of, 100 greatest hits, the 100 greatest tackles, all those things that, that people loved about football, where, you think about Super Bowl 11. What's the play you think of the most? Hello, Daisy. Hey, off the bed. Daisy. My crazy dog just made an appearance.
Miss Debbie gonna get you about the dog now.
Anyway, you think about what's the one play you remember more than anything else from Super Bowl 11? Raiders versus Vikings.
Say that
John,
again.
what's the one play you remember the most if you think about the Super Bowl highlight films? Raiders versus Vikings. What do you remember?
The interception.
Oh, the interception? Oh, that figures your defensive back. I'm thinking about...
That's not fair.
I'm thinking about, where Sammy White comes across the middle and Jack Tatum's there to meet him.
Tears his head off.
He hits... The helmet goes that way. The chin strap goes that way, and Sammy White falls straight down unconscious.
Sammy White was from about 6 miles that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name? Charles Davis? Mike Davis?
No, you're talking about. Wait. You're talking about the interception?
Yeah.
That was Willie Davis.
Willie Davis.
Old man Willie.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You remember that because that long shot of him in slow motion turning back and looking forward. Because it's such a perfect shot, a close up of his face, and I get that. But I'm just about as far as a hit. In the Super Bowl 10, the one I remember most, Jack Lambert taking Cliff Harris after he taps Roy Jarrell in the back of the helmet for missing another field goal. He throws him to the ground. Then you hear John Facenda say, no one can be allowed to intimidate us. We're supposed to be the intimidators. And then he goes on and says, the incident psyched Jack Lambert to even higher level of rage. And, you see him. You see him. He's like bouncing. Concept. He is bouncing, waiting for the next play to happen. I mean, it's that's why NFL Films is what it is. I mean, you just hear that, John Facenda's booming voice, that music by Sam Spence, and then here comes Jack Lambert just going through tacklers, hitting Preston Pearson, wrapping him up, driving him into the dirt, and then getting up by pushing his hand on Preston Pearson's face mask as he stands up. I mean, just all in slow motion. It's just awesome. It is awesome to see.
One of my all-time favorite. I grew up in a older brother and father Pittsburgh Steeler house, so it was within my rights as a younger brother and as a son to rebel.
Oh,
probably one of my favorite players growing up was Hollywood Henderson, and the feuds that went back and forth between Hollywood Henderson and Jack Lambert. Oh, that was prime time right there, baby.
Hollywood Henderson allegedly told Terry Bradshaw that he couldn't spell cat if you spotted in the C and the T.
Yep.
But Bradshaw's response to that was, "How do you spell MVP?" Because of course he won the game. Yeah,
but
I was.
Looking back on, for lack of a better word to describe it, my generation of football, I think that if it had to be summed up in 2 games, it would be those 2 Steelers versus Cowboys Super Bowls. I really do. Well, I think that summed up the 70s for me.
Absolutely. It was 2 best teams of the decade. But again, we're talking about going back to the rule changes and stuff. Especially that second Super Bowl, once the passing rules had been loosened up, and the Steelers and the Cowboys could start slinging the ball over the place. The Super Bowl 13 was probably one of the best Super Bowls in history because you had 2 of the best teams of the decade play each other. They both had great defenses, the Steel Curtain and Doomsday. And then you had the Steelers offense, and you had Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, Drew Pearson. It was just a perfect match of 2 teams, the 2 most dominant teams of the decade, playing each other. And again, you saw a lot of things that would not be allowed today. I mean, they show one play where he tackles Drew Pearson. I think it was not Donnie Shell, but Mel Blunt tackles him. Yeah, tackles him, picks him up, and drags him forward like 5 to 7 yards before dumping him on the ground. Like, oh no, you caught the ball here. I'm gonna put you where I think you caught the ball. You know, you don't get all this extra yard shit. I'm pushing you over here. You know,
my favorite. You're talking about the whole NFL Films library. My favorites were always the highlight reels of Lynn Swann, because I played wide receiver. And anytime you see a guy running a a fly pattern down the sidelines, and he jumps up out of bounds, and in midair flies back inbounds, I'm like, dude, that's I watched it back and forth in slow mo, and I was like, that defies physics. I quit.
Well, you know, I had Lynn Swann was one of my favorite players growing up too, and I had tore up more pants trying to catch the ball like Lynn Swann. And in my mind, I'm jumping in the air as high as Swann, catching the ball way over somebody's head. I probably cleared about a good 3 inches off the ground. You know?
My favorite was always what, and I'm going to date myself here, going back to like the very, very, very beginning of, what was the HBO series?
Inside the NFL.
Inside, when it very, very first started, there was a piece of there was a clip at the very beginning of that showed Russ Francis, and I want to say when he was still a New England Patriot tight end, he jumped up like this and did the toe touch just in the end zone and fell out of bounds.
Yeah.
You know how many games I tried to emulate that in, and I couldn't. They'd never throw me the ball. I was a fullback, man.
Yeah, I remember that was back when it was Len Dawson, Nick Bonacani were the hosts of Inside the NFL. Yes. Back when HBO came on at 4:00 in the afternoon and went off like at 1 a.m.
We were just talking about that the other day, man. Yeah. I said something about, HBO didn't used to come on till 4:00 in the afternoon, and I got some of the most ungodly looks and stares. And one person even asked me, which HBO was that?
Yeah. We talked about this. I talked about this the other day with a friend of mine. Said the whole premise behind Poltergeist could never happen today because kids don't know what snow is on TV. They don't know that. They don't know. They can't imagine a time where, the Star Spangled Banner played and then TV went off the air. Yeah. What does that mean? What do you do? There's no TV. I mean, and
sports fans today don't know the struggle of turning on ESPN at 3:00 in the morning and watching ping pong or badminton or two white guys boxing.
I
mean,
or log throwing, or log racing, where they would get on the log and you have two guys running on the log, and who's going to fall in the water first? Hey, that's how I got to learn about the CFL. Was watching old ESPN.
Absolutely.
I watched USFL on old ESPN. Yeah. Australian rules football, which, oh my God, we were talking about player safety anymore. I don't know how these people aren't dead. They play football the way you saw football played in the days of Dick Night Train Lane and stuff like that, except they have no equipment on. It's
no helmets.
No helmets. Pads. No shoulder pads. Clotheslines illegal. It's guys that it's like
lines are encouraged.
Right. It's like two fraternities after about being 3 kegs in, had decided to play a pickup game of football, and they're just going to play. And there's no rules, and just do whatever it takes. Tackle the man with the ball, last man standing, whatever you want to call that game.
Reminds me of the Adam Sandler's movie, The Longest Yard, when he remade the Burt Reynolds movie. The basketball game between him and Michael Irvin. That's like Australian rules basketball.
Yeah, it's just it's a lot of fun. I mean, I sat there in a bar room, because I was going out back then when they had those things on, and I'm watching this. I'm going, this is unbelievable. I can't believe what I'm watching. Oh my God, you just see that? That kind of thing. That and the Japanese All-Stars or the Korean All-Stars versus Boston and Mary College, and it was like 96-0. William and Mary College was beating the Japanese All-Stars. It was an unbelievable game. I felt bad, These are your best Japanese players, and they're all or Korean players or Vietnamese players. I'm not sure what team. I want to say it's Japanese All-Stars. I'm almost positive it was Japanese. But, they are outweighed by a good 100 pounds and about a foot in height difference. Now, this is about the mid-'80s when I saw this game. But, back then, that's what you saw. The height and weight difference between William and Mary College versus, this Japanese all-star football team. And I felt so bad. I was like, God, there's a mercy rule. You can't beat a team 96-0 or some ungodly number like that.
Unless you're from Cumberland.
Yes. Okay, so we managed to stretch this out for another half hour talking about NFL films. Basically,
it always comes back to memories, doesn't it?
Yeah, but basically, we all hate the rules, and I don't think they're going to be enforced this way or this.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. That was a point that I was trying to make with what I was saying. That you have to keep it in context. Everything is about the context. You have to remember that this is the preseason for the referees as well.
Mm-hmm.
I very easily could be just as off base as anything by saying this, but I don't think that you're going to see the outcomes of so many games radically affected by officiating as what you're seeing right now in the preseason. They have to perfect what they're doing much the same way that Taysom Hill has to get live reps with a live defense to be able to acclimate himself to game speeds. Well, the same thing is true with the referees as well.
Yeah. Well, and they are trying to make the players aware of stuff, so they want them to think twice before they go and hit somebody, especially a quarterback. But at the same time, and this is what brought in that whole flood of memories, you're taking away a lot of what makes the game appealing to people. And is it making the game safer? I don't think it is. So what exactly are you accomplishing? You're driving more in a time where the NFL is losing members, and we don't need to go into the other reason that people think the NFL is losing viewership. The NFL is losing viewership because people are going to stream services. They're not watching networks. Some people aren't even watching the games. They're just watching the highlights because they can download the highlights off of YouTube or NFL.com or whatever and see the whole game, all they care to see about. They're not really seeing – they don't want to be caught up in the drama of the game. They'd rather just see, okay, how did my fantasy team do? Oh, that's good. I got this, this, and this. I can watch NFL Red Zone and see all this stuff I want to see. I don't have to go and sit through a drive or I have to go sit through a quarter and a half of scoreless football. I can just get to the highlights, and that's it. And if you have penalties now, that just means even fewer people are going to start watching the game because penalties take up time. Penalties slow the game down. So people are going to rather watch the highlights and sit through all these penalties, So it's a decision that the league is going to have to address, and I think they better address it this year as the season goes on, and
Well,
don't sit there and
if I
say,
understood it correctly, they were supposed to have a some sort of something happen today in regards to the new helmet rules, some sort of meeting or something.
yeah,
I can't speak really to that because I don't know where exactly that went from there. I just remember reading that update on my my social media.
that's possible. It's possible. We'll see how this works out. But anyway,
Saturday nights
there we go.
in that high school football field in Los Angeles,
Yeah,
or excuse me, that high school soccer stadium in Los Angeles that we played at last year,
yeah.
uh, against Philip and the boys.
Well, we got
What do
practice
you expect to
tomorrow.
see from that?
Um, I expect to see the starters play at least a quarter. I like for them to play about a quarter and a half. I'd like to see the offense come out there and fire and score on whatever possessions, however many possessions they have. They get two possessions. I'd like to see them score on both possessions. Um, I'd like to see the defense come out there and set the tone early by getting a couple of turnovers. I'm not so much interested in sacks right now. I'm interested in turnovers. Um, we were, it doesn't matter, but because of Tyson Hill's fumbles, we had what, four? We were -4, I think, on the turnover, giveaway, takeaway. I want to see, that improve. I want to get some turnovers on defense. I want offense score touchdowns, and then they can go to the sidelines and let, Savage, Hill, and Barrett just totally screw up the game. Just saying, that's all that matters. How about you?
I want to see a little bit more. I'm trying to say this not politically correct, but I want to see a little bit more continuity between the starters starting to develop. I don't care to see Drew play. I don't care to see Michael Thomas play. Alvin Kamara, Teron Armstead, Cam Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore. I really don't necessarily care to see these guys come out there and risk injury prior to the season because I don't, to be totally honest with you, I don't see all that much benefit that could be made from them going out there and putting themselves at risk in a meaningless game. I just feel like there's a greater purpose to be served for those other guys, and there's a greater purpose to be served for those guys being rested and being ready to go on September the 9th against Tampa Bay as well. Now, I want to see Savage specifically. I want to see him. We need to get an email to that guy to set his damn feet and step into the throw.
He did better. He did better against Arizona, but he was taking a lot of checkdowns. He wasn't really pushing the ball
Hey,
down.
man, I'll take 2 or 3 yards and keep the ball and move the chains over throwing it 50 yards and overthrowing a receiver or completely misfiring and throwing it to the other team. I'll take that every day of the week.
That's what you got with Hill. You just described Hill's night. So,
there we go. We're right back where we started with the Hindenburg.
That's it. Yeah.
Guys, don't buy the hype. Anytime that Joe Buck and Troy Aikman address the New Orleans Saints and the inner workings of their organization, it's lies. Come on. And Alan and I tried to tell you guys a year ago. The guy is shagging punts and shagging kickoffs. He is not the next Drew Brees. Trust us. Believe us. We're not going to lie to you. There's no money in it for us.
No, there's no money in whether we lie to you or not.
Well, that was my point. But
yeah. But you're right, and there really is no future quarterback on the roster right now because of Drew Brees' contract. The real future has to come from the NFL draft, not from free agency. We might get lucky again and, get somebody, that is on the verge of becoming a great player. But for the most part, you need to get that guy has to come from the NFL draft. And the only way you can get that is you've got to trade up like we did with Davenport, trade up and go get them, go up there and go get them high in the draft.
and I'm going to hip you to a harsh reality. As long as Drew Brees is on the New Orleans Saints roster, you are not going to see the Saints spend a first or second round draft pick on a quarterback. It's not going to happen. You can hope for that and you can dream of that, but it's not going to happen because as long as Drew Brees is on this roster, they're going to be stacking pieces around him to make a run.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So here we go.
Now that we've alienated the entire viewing audience.
Yep. There we go. I coming up to before we have the after this next preseason game, I'm gonna put together my final prediction of who's gonna make the 53-man roster. I'll post that on Under the Dome. I'll post it a couple other places too. We're still talking that the roster is pretty much set. The only thing we're talking about now is fine. We're going to play like the fifth receiver, the backup running back that will do while he's out, your backup offensive lineman, your backup defensive lineman, your backup secondary players. We're not talking about starters anymore. The starting 22 is pretty much set. So that's a good thing. That says a lot about this team. That 3 years of drafting good drafts has pretty much built a solid core around Drew Brees. So let's see what happens this week. We have 2 practices coming up to the Chargers, and the Chargers have been having a lot of injuries. So I hope that doesn't wash off on us. And then we've got Saturday night's game, and then the last game will be Thursday night in the Dome against the Rams. That's really a game where you won't see anybody of note play in that game. So then we'll have the regular season start up the following Thursday, Atlanta and Philadelphia. So real football is almost upon us.
Yes, indeed. And the Falcons play. You know what happened the last time that they?
Yep.
I digress. We want to thank you guys for joining us tonight. Invite you guys once again to subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes. Boy, I almost screwed that up again.
Yep.
YouTube and iTunes, Under the Dome Podcast. You can find us on Facebook at Under the Dome Podcast. Twitter at Under the Dome PO1. And our individual Twitter handles are all attached there. Invite you guys, as we said, September the 5th at 7 p.m. Bayou Blitz kickoff special featuring our brother from another mother, Bob Rose, and also Tyrone Hughes and Kyle T. Mosley. September the 8th at 7 p.m., our expanded 2-hour format for our season kickoff show. We'll do our usual NFC South roundtable discussion where we'll have guys from representing the entire NFC South division. And that will be preceded by Jolon Dunbar, former Saints linebacker, interview with Alan and myself. Really looking forward to that. Did I forget anything?
I think you got everything.
It's really sad that I write everything down and then I have to ask if I covered it.
Just check the checklist. Looks like we covered everything. So thank you for sticking.
That's it. I need to get a pen and check it off as I go. I'm sorry.
We almost went 2 hours again. So thank you guys for sticking with us this long. And
programming.
That's right. Maybe we'll eventually start at 8 o'clock on the dot. That way we'll finish at 9. Can always hope for that. Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. And we'll see you next time on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Thank you.